Hello everyone and welcome back to episode 241 of your favourite Formula 1 show. Yes, Jamie and I return this week to do one of the most meta things we can do as Formula 1 podcasters. Today we are going through, if you're on YouTube you will see we've got a tier list in front of us. If you're on Spotify, you won't see that, but we'll run through the order as we get later on. Yes, today we're going to be ranking all 21 of the 2025 Formula 1 drivers. We thought this one, it'd be a little bit different, a little bit of fun, and something to pass the time away before we head to the Austrian Grand Prix this weekend. Of course, Jamie, first and foremost, how are we doing, sir?
Doing well. Yeah, had a good weekend. I discovered my car's in big trouble, which is a shame, but... Yes, I did feel like a mechanic with the car jacked up and laying underneath it, not having a clue what was going on.
That's probably not very mechanic-y then.
Well, the first part was very mechanic-y, so there we go. If anyone needs a pit lane mechanic in Formula 1, then...
Don't hire Jamie.
Don't hire me, because I don't know what I'm doing.
He can't even... Ladies and gents, he can't even get the bonnet up on his car, he was telling me beforehand. That's
well, because it's broken, not because I don't know how.
Deary me. Deary me. Jamie, I don't know if the viewers know this before, but what car do you drive, sir?
I drive a 2003 Vauxhall Corsa that's
Nice.
got 60-odd thousand miles.
I assume it was owned by someone from the church before you. Like
No, it was owned,
90-year-old
I got it in random garage in Leeds. It was in someone's garage for about 15 years.
You stole someone's car
No.
out of their garage.
Right. I bought it from a dealer in Leeds in 2018.
Who stole it from a garage?
Who maybe stole it from a garage.
I just always find it wild that that's basically the only car you've ever driven, isn't it?
It is the only car I've ever owned, yeah. Yeah, I've driven
Wild.
some other cars, but
Yeah, from time
hired
to time,
or
but
yeah,
wild.
or friends'
Absolutely
cars
wild.
occasionally, stuff like that. Yeah,
I hope you were fully insured.
of course.
Anyway, let's get into the important stuff. First of all, of course, as always, if you're new or if you do like the show, I haven't already, please do make sure you get yourself subscribed. We are up to 923 subscribers on the podcast. Stop letting Google have all our money. So please help us get to 1K, and then we can finally stop monetizing this show. It'll then hopefully mean in the future we can do a few more bits with it as well. But Jamie, how do we want to order this? Do we want to go championship order, reverse championship order, team order? What do we want to do?
Why don't we go top down?
Top down, interesting.
That'll mix it up for usual.
It will. So we'll start. This is going to test my knowledge now, then, because I've always got to try and guess. We start with Oscar Piastri. Therefore,
We do. I think he's been a lot better than everyone expected this season.
I agree. I think a lot of people, including Lando Norris, assumed that he would just
including
be
ourselves,
the McLaren number 2.
Pre-season predictions.
We did. Yes, we did.
I think we both put Norris to win the championship, and I think I put Piastri third.
I think I put Piastri 4th behind the Ferraris, which was not ideal looking back, but there we are.
And you put Verstappen down in 7th, I seem to remember, which I rinsed you for.
That could still happen when he starts getting race bans.
Maybe not. But anyway, Oscar Piastri. I've got the stats, if I can find McLaren. Here we go. So, quali head-to-head this is. Piastri is 8-4 up on Norris. When last season, I think Piastri lost 20-4 or something. It was mad how one-sided it was.
Yep.
Piastri's average gap is a 10.5 ahead of Norris.
I assume this is just Q3.
Well, it's the last session they were both
qualifying
in, if you get what I mean. So for McLaren, it will be mostly Q3, but Red Bull, it'll be Q1. So, yeah. I think he has to be in the top tier.
Yeah, I think so. We've got 5 tiers for this one. We probably should have explained that first of all. We've got S, A, B, C, D. Fairly kind of standard stuff for a tier list. Yeah, I think Oscar Piastri certainly belongs in S tier as well. I did see an interesting stat, though, this week, Jamie, of... like the gap between them in Q2 is actually in Lando's favour by like quarter of a second normally. It's just Lando Norris is a complete bottle job.
Pretty much.
In 2025. How many times he's bottled it in Q3?
Well,
it's been quite hilarious.
Yeah, because Bahrain, he didn't get a lap together, qualified 5th or 6th, didn't he?
Yep.
Saudi obviously crashed out. Imola, he was behind a Mercedes.
Yep.
And then Canada just didn't get a lap together again, and that wasn't like, I know this is about Piastri, but Norris really hasn't helped himself in Q3. To be honest, Piastri's had some like second tier races, like where he's been worse than Norris up until Q3, and then he's still won the race, which I think is a really good telling sign that you're ready to win a championship.
Yeah, no, exactly. And I think, Oscar just focuses on doing what he needs to do, doesn't he? Which is the important bit of, I think he tries to go out there, gets what he can sensibly get out of the car, but tries to avoid taking too many risks. I'm trying to think, apart from obviously that mistake at Australia.
Which, to be fair to him, wasn't really a mistake. I mean, Norris just had big consequences at Norris. Yeah.
But I'm trying to think, has he made any other kind of highbrow errors this year?
I don't think so.
He's had a couple of races, obviously, where he's been slower than Lando, but I'm trying to, apart from that, and obviously Canada was the first race since Australia that he hasn't finished on the podium.
I think Monaco weekend, he was pretty ropey, but he never actually crashed it, but he got very close a few times.
He made a couple of mistakes, didn't he? I think he did have one mistake on Friday as well. Yeah. I still can't go over talking about his podium streak, that Lewis Hamilton's debut with McLaren is still the longest podium streak that his team's ever seen. His first 9 races.
Really?
They've never had more than 9 races in a row where one driver's been on the podium.
Crazy. And that was Lewis Hamilton's race 1 to 9.
Exactly. The fact that even he never managed that again is pretty insane. I mean, we've spoke about it then immediately, haven't we, Jamie? It's probably easier to do a lot of these as teams because we're doing a lot of head-to-head comparisons. Lando Norris, couple of big mistakes this year, quite a few big mistakes this year. I think he expected it, and a lot of people expected it, that he would probably, if McLaren had the advantages that they have, I think a lot of us assumed he'd probably have, a 30, maybe even a 40-point lead in the World Championship by now. But as we've said, and as has become very, very clear, when the pressure's on, the pressure does get to Lando Norris. He can be a bit of a bottle job, and at the moment, I mean, it's probably a bit of an awkward weekend for him to be, because recency bias. Things aren't looking great, are they?
No, not at all, because we spoke about it last week, didn't we, in terms of Canada weekend. That high-profile error where he just drove into the back of Piastri, going for half a gap that was never really there.
I think even half a gap is optimistic.
Yeah, exactly. It has been a good season. I can't put him below maybe B at a push. I would rather have him at A, to be honest.
Yeah, I think winning the Monaco Grand Prix is always going to be a big achievement for anybody, no matter how your season's going. Winning the Monaco Grand Prix,
despite having, we've been saying, Piastri's having the form of his life, the best season. Norris is having a really, really terrible season. Up until Canada, there was, less than 10 points in it?
Yeah.
So
I think, it's been kind of that weird thing, isn't it, of, with Oscar Piastri, I still don't get the sense that we've seen everything that he's capable of, it feels like. Like, he does very much the Alain Prost, doesn't he? Of, there's kind of no pizzazz to it or anything like that. He does the bare minimum to get the maximum result.
Yeah. I still feel like his best win in F1 was Baku last year, so it's not.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's not been this year yet.
Yeah.
So he's still got a higher level to go, and I really hope they get their gloves off at some point again and have a real fight that is a bit more on the edge of whose fault it is.
Well, had Lando not just ran into the back of him, that could have been a really good fight in the final few laps in Montreal.
Yeah.
But again, how can you fight someone who's a bottle job? It's quite easy. Where are we putting Lando then? Top of A, lower end? Top of B, lower end A here at the moment. He has made a few highbrow errors.
He has. Maybe top of B. That feels a bit harsh though.
It does feel a bit. We can assess these.
We
later
can
redo
it later. Yeah,
we will kind of re-rank these within their tiers.
I guess he is losing to his teammate in quali and race, and has made a few errors. I don't feel bad now. Actually, put him in B.
Fair enough. Next up, Max Verstappen. Come on, Jamie, give us the one side, and I'll give you the other.
For me, he has to be an S. I would accept him being lower than Piastri, but the fact that you can put any other driver you want next to Verstappen and he will blow them out the water, and his head-to-head against Tsunoda is 9-0 and average gap is 7.5 tenths, and Tsunoda is not an idiot. He was pretty highly rated until he stepped into that Red Bull.
I think that's all. I love this
maybe not
narrative
highly.
suddenly
Maybe not
that
highly.
Tsunoda was highly rated,
But he was
he
mid-rated.
didn't even get the gig last year.
He was
He
at the very
absolutely
least.
deserves to be in Formula One.
Yeah, and I think to have 3 pole positions, 2 wins, another 3 second places in, I know you're gonna laugh, in a car that is generally at peak is second fastest, worst is third and fourth, and 5th in Bahrain. But yeah,
It was not 5th in Bahrain, man. It was 4th in Bahrain, I will give you that. And what happened that weekend? Verstappen
the
had
only
a
bad
stinker.
race. Verstappen came 6th,
Yeah,
Which
great.
behind the cars he should have been behind, and beat Kimi Antonelli. There we go. And Gasly in a faster car.
Kimi Antonelli with 3 Grand Prix under his belt at that point.
I would accept an A because of Spain, but I will not be happy with any less than A for Verstappen.
This was the debate I thought we were going to have, was whether it was going to be between S and A. I mean, as we've said, the thing is with Verstappen, as always, isn't it, of when he's good, you know, and I will quite happily admit, you know, we get it with very few drivers in the sport, don't we, of when they are on their A game, they are unbeatable. We've seen this with Lewis in the past, you know, we've seen glimmers of this with Charles, with George, you know, arguably with Oscar and Lando as well, to a slightly lesser degree, but, you know, with a Verstappen, with a Lewis, you can see that for, you know, weekends, seasons, that kind of thing. Of, you know, 4 or 5 times a year where you're just there, they come into a weekend and no one can get close to them, you know, with Schumacher, with Senna, you know, all the kind of the great drivers that we've seen throughout history. But again, Verstappen does still have this, you know, and I think it'll always be kind of, for people like me, a great kind of talking point, an example of he can still absolutely, when he gets into his own head or when things don't go right, he will still happily throw a temper tantrum, and he normally screws himself over. It just depends on who he takes with him.
It's just, that's almost the other side of the coin, isn't it? If you can have a driver who's so aggressive all the time, which is actually what makes him so good, it is part of the deal, in a way.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is not great, and I do admit Spain was proper stupid. But I still think Red Bull didn't do him any favours.
How many points behind Lando is he right now? Overall?
21.
21 points behind Lando. So
he would have finished 4th or 5th recently.
4th or 5th, yeah. So he could be 10 points back behind Lando. Yeah. I think if Spain hadn't have an easily S tier, probably I would say he's doing better than Oscar this year.
Yeah.
I still think there's a bit of kind of uncertainty about. I think that Red Bull is a very, very good car when it's hooked up. It's just, of course, yes, it takes a Max Verstappen caliber driver to get what it needs out of it as well.
But that Q3 lap in Japan is one of the best ever.
Oh, yeah. Best ever is... He definitely maximised it, absolutely. I would settle for S, but put him below Oscar, despite what happened in Spain.
Yes, let's do it.
Because I'm kind of looking up and down the rest of the grid going, does anybody else deserve to be in S tier right now?
I don't think, probably not.
And I think only putting one driver in there seems a little bit extreme.
Yes, get Verstappen in S, we'll move on. We'll not revisit that one.
Fair enough. I'll allow him lower than Oscar. Should we do Yuki Tsunoda then as his teammate? Or do you want to move through championship order?
I mean, next is George Russell, if we were going that way.
It's up to you.
Let's do George.
Okay.
George Russell. He's been operating at an extremely high level. And I think it's gone quite under the radar, to be honest. Because the Mercedes has not been that good. Oh, well, up until Canada, when it was probably the car to beat, if not at least close with the McLaren. And yeah, I think he's doing really well. He's had 5 podiums, which is more than he's equaled the most podiums he's ever had in one season already. Yeah. Obviously got the win under his belt. Only his 4th win ever, which feels like not that many. Sorry, 5th. 5th?
Is he tied now with Norris for wins?
Surely Norris is on more than 5. No, that was 4 for Russell. 4.
Yeah, Norris is on 5 though, isn't he, I think?
No, he got 4 last year and he's now at 2, hasn't he?
Did he get 4 last year? Did he?
Yeah,
okay, maybe
he's on 6. He's on 6.
Yeah.
Russell doesn't have a contract yet for 26, which is mental.
No, we're definitely going to talk about this in the
Austria
show
preview
later on in the week. Yeah.
It would have been announced by then. Watch it, so we lose a talking point. But yeah, I think Russell has. I mean, obviously he was expected to be Antonelli, but he has done it quite easily. 10-2 in quali, 0.3 average gap. So He's doing really well. I don't think he can go in S because there have been a few races where he's just been a bit nowhere, like Imola when he qualified third, finished 7th. Obviously, Monaco, Mercedes properly messed up.
Yeah.
And I still don't know how he got away with Spain, just barging Verstappen off at turn 1.
What, around the outside he barged him? Oh, turn
No, it
one,
wasn't
sorry,
around the outside.
I think
No, I'm not baiting
making
there.
a
That
joke.
genuinely. How he...
Yeah, no, I'm staggered by that one still.
And the fact Red Bull told him to give the place back was mental.
Oh, yeah. Gee,
Whatever.
that lives rent free in his head. I love it.
It really does.
I think he's top of A, surely.
Yeah. Yeah, I would agree
Absolutely top. I could be persuaded to put him in S with Piastri and Verstappen because I feel like those are the three that are getting what they should be out of their cars pretty reliably. But I would settle for top of A because they're having a couple of bad weekends as well. But then again, you could say the same about Max.
One bad weekend for Max.
Yeah.
I really, really hope the McLarens keep on fighting because we could get a really good championship fight out of this if the Mercedes and Red Bull can fight more consistently at the front. Because Russell is only, I mean, it's a bit of a stretch for him really, but Max is 43 points off of Oscar. Russell is another 19 points off Max. So if they keep on fighting,
would be a huge overhaul.
it would be. But if they keep on crashing into each other, which I hope they do, then Russell and Verstappen could get themselves involved, which would be great for the championship.
The thing is, you say that all you need is a few more weekends like Montreal, where Russell wins, Verstappen comes second, and suddenly
because that was 25. That was a 13-point swing for Russell over Piastri, and obviously 25-point swing over Norris.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
You never know.
I think we'd still be optimistic. I think
one follow doesn't make a
bit of a weird one for McLaren as well. But yeah, it would be fascinating, wouldn't it, if we could get both of those two into the championship fight? Although, to be honest, I would just like to see Russell and Verstappen, even if they're just battling for P3 or even P2 against Norris this year, because I just can't see Piastri kind of allowing himself to get brought into games that would result in him.
But you never know. In those championship rounds, I know that like someone spoke about this when in 2021 it was one of the Mercedes lot said that Verstappen has never been in the championship battles in the last 10 races. Come autumn, both those McLaren drivers have never really had that. I guess Norris did a little bit, but he didn't do much with it last year, did he?
No.
It will be interesting to see how, when the pressure ramps up, both those drivers in McLaren react.
Yeah, I think it's... Well, we already know how they'll probably both react. Oscar will keep doing what he's doing, and Lando will keep doing what he's doing.
Maybe. Next up is Charles Leclerc. I don't have a clue what to do with the Ferrari drivers.
Ferraris is so weird, isn't it, man? So weird. Like, he's definitely... I think the big thing for Charles, that obviously coming into this year, of course, was that he had to prove that he obviously could beat Lewis. Lewis is coming to his garden and everything like that, into his team. For Charles Leclerc, goal one was still prove that you're faster than Lewis, which I think, for the most part, he has done.
I think he has, yeah.
I would say... I think he's got to go A, surely.
He has had a good season, even in pure numbers. The Ferrari...
It's been a disappointing year, but it's not been his fault. It's just been Ferrari doing Ferrari things.
And he's had a couple of thirds and a second. Obviously, the Monaco second, he will say should have been a win. Fifth in the championship. Yeah, it's just been a very Ferrari-esque season, hasn't it? Where, the amount of times that Leclerc's just complaining about strategy on the radio. It's after, 9? No, not 9. That's a bit of exaggeration, isn't it? How many seasons has he been at Ferrari?
6. This is his 6th, 2019 onwards. Or 7th even, I guess.
This is his 7th, yeah. Carlos Sainz learnt to ignore Ferrari within a year or two.
Yep.
I'm surprised Leclerc still goes with it because he was well annoyed in Canada, wasn't he, about the strategy? And it's not been the only time. There's been more where he's like, why are we doing this and that kind of thing. Obviously, the double DSQ in China was quite funny, but not really the driver's fault. I could give a low A.
I think lower than George easily. We say, but I think he's with
probably,
both Ferrari drivers, they've not really made any big driver errors though, have they? Really?
Hamilton just loses his spirit really easily these days, which I feel bad. He'll have a slightly bad lap in the first 10 laps of the race and just be like, "Oh mate, this car is awful, get me out," kind of thing. It's almost like that never give up spirit that he had at Mercedes so well. I feel like more races than not, he's like, I'm just getting nothing, and it feels like he's.
Yeah, it's one of those things, though, isn't it? When you're not fighting for the win, for someone that feels like has always fought for wins.
Yeah, it must be demoralising.
I'm not saying it's right, but it must be demoralising, especially obviously when Ferrari was so hyped up coming into this season. As we've seen so many times with Ferrari, incredibly hyped up, and then they don't deliver it. And
I'll just say, only one of the members of this podcast hyped them up.
No, you got to remember, a lot of people within Formula One were
yes,
hyping
true.
Up this year. It was going to be Ferrari versus McLaren, and it just hasn't happened.
Did not fall for the media.
Where did you put the Ferraris in the pre-season predictions? I don't think you put them that far down.
I had the top 3 was the McLarens and Verstappen. I know that, so they could be at most 4th. I can't remember where I put them. But yeah, there you go.
Yeah, so we're putting Charles bottom of A then, or lower than George in A at the moment. Where are we putting Lewis? I think he's
Hamilton.
He's
B. Yeah, I would say B. I think obviously he's 40 odd, isn't he? So he's not prime Lewis Hamilton anymore, but he's still showing glimpses of that very, very high caliber driver that we always know.
He won the Shanghai Sprint, Jamie.
That
car was definitely illegal, but he won it.
It may have been. It may have been.
It most likely was, wasn't it, man?
Or
at least it was so borderline already that it was never going to make it through the race.
And obviously the podium in Miami Sprint as well was actually quite a well-driven race.
Yeah.
He did get overtaken by Hulkenberg at Spain, though. So that knocks him down a few pegs.
Are we putting him lower or higher than Lando? He kind of hasn't seen anywhere near as many highs, but probably not as low lows. I think I'll put him lower for now.
I think lower, to be fair to Lando.
He's currently ranked worst on this tier list, which is
we have only done a top 6 in the championship. So that's,
exactly.
And he is 6th out of those drivers. Next up, Kimi, Antonelli, unless you want to talk about Hamilton more.
No, I'd rather not at the moment.
Regen Hamilton in the Mercedes.
Yep.
You declared him as Ayrton Senna reincarnated after Miami Sprint.
I did.
At which point
you kept telling me you don't understand the hype.
At which point he went 3 races without points.
2 of those were mechanical failures, though, weren't they?
Imola, he wasn't really on for points anyway. He was like 11th because he got distracted by his schoolmates.
He was on an alternate strategy. He was coming back through. He was gonna be like 8th or 9th, but he was gonna score.
Spain was mechanical. Monaco, he got lapped 3 times, but that was Mercedes rather than Antonelli.
Exactly.
Although he did mess up quali, didn't he?
He did bin it in quali. But to be fair, Senna binned it at Monaco as well, so I was kind of bang on with that one.
Senna finished 2nd in the Tyrrell. That wasn't what Antonelli did.
It was a Tolman, not a Tyrrell.
Tolman, not Tyrrell. Same thing. T.
Okay.
It has. I like Antonelli. I do think
you finally starting to understand the magic. Yeah.
For an 18-year-old, he's been very good. Because, especially the Canada race, I said this on the pod last week, that he drove with a maturity beyond his years, which I think is always a telling sign of a driver who's going to go on to great things. Because he obviously 3rd youngest podium ever. Lance Stroll one was mostly luck, to be honest.
Yep.
If you look at Baku 17, this one was pure kind of pace. And, he did lose to Russell in quali and race, but he wasn't far off a multiple race winner who's been at the team for 6 years.
Yeah, and defended from those McLarens beautifully towards the end and pushed them into each other.
And almost had a go at Verstappen. He had a few attempts, didn't he, at second place?
He did.
So that race.
And let's not forget, he's overtaken Verstappen a couple of times before as well this year, back at Bahrain and stuff, which was great to watch.
Though he just finished 11th in Bahrain. How did that happen?
He got screwed over in the
safety car,
end.
Wasn't it?
Yeah. He's been very, very unlucky, but I think what's great about Antonelli is he hasn't really let that get to him still.
No, he's got a youthful exuberance, hasn't he?
I feel like he has genuinely, arguably been the unluckiest driver so far this year, on a lot of occasions.
I'd put Alonso in that field, probably.
Alonso as well, yeah.
But yeah, he's up there. I don't know where to rate him. Obviously, he can't go higher than Russell, in my mind, because he has lost quite comfortably to George Russell, as you would expect. So Russell was in A?
Yep. Russell and Leclerc were in A.
Maybe a high B for Antonelli?
Where are we putting him relative to Lando and Lewis, then? I think we've also got to make it clear as well, we do give the rookies a little bit kind of more leeway for mistakes and things because they are rookies. But he has, I would argue he's been the best of the rookies.
Him or
I think Hadjar might have been
really?
the most surprising, but...
Yeah, I would go between Lando and Lewis, personally.
Okay.
But I know your Lewis Hamilton bias will be killing you.
I'm also a big Kimi Antonelli fan, and he has
True.
had more podiums than Lewis in races this year. So
True.
I'll allow that one for now.
Next up is Alexander Albon. And he's had a very weird season.
It's been a tale of two halves, hasn't it, down at Williams?
A little bit, but only as of the last 2 races it's been disappointing. Because before that, he had 3 fifth places in a Williams.
Yep.
I didn't know he was that good.
Yeah.
7th in China. Yeah, he's just been... And he's pocketed Carlos Sainz, to be fair to him. Like,
which no one thought was going to happen.
Nobody expected that. I thought Albon's been stat padding for 3 years. But it's 7-4 in quali and a 10th and a half in Albon's favour. Albon's 8th in the championship on 42 points. Sainz is 13th on 13 points.
Yep.
So, yeah, I think Albon's been one of the best midfielders. Probably, over the course of the whole season, the best midfielder.
I would say Albon has had a similar season to George and Charles, just in a different fight.
Yes.
To be honest,
He
I
has
think
got
he's gotta
consistently
go
a lot out of the Williams.
He's basically put them in a situation where they could theoretically, if they were feeling really brave, probably bin off this year's car now and solely focus on next year's.
Which I feel like James Vowles is a very logical thinker. He probably will do that anyway.
I think they've already said they're going that route with it already.
But as a team, they're
would
5th in the
I put him higher
championship.
than Charles?
I think I would. I think he's had
Let's
higher
put him higher than
highs.
Charles. Yeah.
But Williams are on 55 points as a team. Haas is 6th on 28. I'm about to sneeze,
Yeah.
by the way, so sorry, headphone users. It's... Oh, there we go. I should have
That was
muted.
the
Sorry.
quietest sneeze I think I've ever
Oh,
heard.
really? I did a great job. There we go. Yeah, Williams could theoretically score. Obviously, this won't happen. But if they scored no points for the rest of the season, they may still finish 5th.
Yeah, I think if you stop developing that car now, you'd still pick up a few more points. I
Yeah,
don't
you would.
think 51 would be enough to guarantee you that spot now.
No, but they'd finish no lower than 7th or 8th with 55 points already.
Yeah. But obviously, they've got an opportunity to come 5th this year, which
Yeah,
they've
so
got to
they might as well.
take.
You were just 3 years early on predicting Williams in 5th in the championship.
I was. I thought when we did that prediction it was going to be the end of the ground effect era and not the start. Or clearly, I saw the vision of what Williams could be in this ground effect era.
Exactly. 9th place is Esteban Ocon, which is really surprising. Why is he in 9th place?
Shanghai?
It is mostly that 5th place in Shanghai, which was down to a lot of disqualifications. Haas have been so weird, because I had to pay attention to Haas last year, because Hulkenberg drove for them. Now I just don't care. So
Haas seem to have combined their typical, they're either the best of the midfield or last, but they seem to have somehow been doing both in the same season, which is quite
and often
rare.
in the same races.
Yeah, they're often terrible in qualifying. It's often a good sign if Haas end up last in qualifying, because it normally means they've got a good race car under them.
The amount of Q1 eliminations.
We thought after Australia they were in the bin again, and suddenly they just haven't been.
Yeah,
but
so
on
they
some
qualified.
weekends, then they are.
They were basically on the back row in Melbourne, weren't they? And didn't get points.
They were like a second off everybody else.
They came last and second last of the finishers. And then in Shanghai, they rock up and get 14 points, which is a lot for a midfield team. So Ocon has had the edge on Bearman, but not by much. So it's 7-5 in quality.
And often only been on a Sunday, because Bearman has been unlucky in a couple of Grand Prix as well.
He has. But I do think Ocon should probably go in B. He's just been really up and down, because he's had 4 points finishes. They've all been pretty good points finishes, like a 5th, 7th, 8th, 9th. But then other races, like Japan, he came 18th.
Yeah.
Imola, he was out. I don't know what happened. Do you remember what happened there?
I believe
I feel
that
like it was
mechanical.
mechanical. Like Spain, just 16th for no reason. Like, it's a really hard one to read for Esteban Ocon. But he has been all right.
When the Haas is worse, Bearman does better. But when the Haas is stronger, it feels like Ocon will tend to often get a bit more out of it, it feels like.
I get that, yeah. And that's almost the opposite of what we saw at Alpine last year, which is interesting. In terms of him and Gasly. But to be 9th in the championship in a very inconsistent car, I mean, the whole field is quite inconsistent, really. At its best, the Haas is the class of the midfield. But that best has happened once or twice.
Yeah, you could say that about Williams, you could say that about Aston Martin, or even VCARB, couldn't you?
Or Sauber, really, at this point.
Or, yeah, exactly. Every midfield team.
Apart from Alpine. Even Alpine in Bahrain were probably the class of the midfield.
Yeah.
So, yes, I'll say, is B okay? Are you happy with that?
I've put him at bottom of B for now.
Okay. Isack Hadjar is 10th. He's been my surprise of the season, I think.
I think he's been everybody's surprise of the season.
I went on the record and said I didn't like Isack Hadjar very much because of his attitude.
So did I at the start of the year.
I think he's really funny now. Yeah.
He's brilliant. He's absolutely brilliant, bless him.
He is. And obviously, after he binned it on the formation lap, we were like, oh, well, he's finished. Helmut Marko's going to crucify him, which he probably did. But since then, he's been doing work, and he's beaten every teammate he's had, all two of them, in the VCARB, which, again, quite an inconsistent car. But it's just in qualifying that he's just put in the absolute work. There's so many Q3 appearances when his teammates have barely had any.
It feels like often what's been the case is, especially with Lawson, that Lawson narrowly misses out in Q1, and then Hadjar just squeaks into Q3 reliably. Yeah. And it's been great to see for him. I mean, he's basically just done the perfect Red Bull of, we just need to give someone a seat. We'll give it to him for a year.
Yeah.
And kind of suddenly everybody's gone. Actually, yeah, Formula 2, again, is still not a great barometer for an F1 driver.
But Hadjar did finish third, didn't he?
Hadjar finished well in Formula, but that's my whole point, that people obviously doubted him, that he'd be able to do anything in Formula 1. People just assumed he won the Mechachrome lottery.
Yeah.
And actually, he's clearly got the speed.
Yeah. And he is quite raw still, obviously. I think he's 20, isn't he? 21 or something?
Yeah.
He's 20, yeah. My word, 2004. That's grim.
Don't look at Antonelli.
Oh, yeah, I know. I would put him... Where's Albon? Do we put Albon in A?
Albon's in A.
I feel like I'd go just below Albon.
You're going to put him ahead of Charles Leclerc?
I would genuinely be happy with that, because I think...
Ahead of Lando Norris?
Hadjar has been more surprising. Like, a better... Like, Hadjar has beaten his expectations a lot more than Norris or Leclerc has. He's 8-1 up on Lawson.
I struggle to justify putting him ahead of Lando, who's in a World Championship fight.
Well, he should be winning the World Championship by 20-odd points, shouldn't he? And he said he's losing it.
Well, yeah. But can you say Isack Hadjar is in that calibre of a Lando Norris, as Charles Leclerc, or George Russell?
Well, we're just basing it off the first 10 races
of this season. No, I do get that as well.
I can go below them, because I want to put Hulkenberg above them anyway. So maybe...
Deary me. Should we put him just ahead of Antonelli?
Is that behind Albon still?
Yes.
Yes, let's do it.
So we're saying Hadjar's had I would say honestly Hadjar has had a better year than Lewis so far.
And Antonelli. Yeah, enough. I'd agree with that.
Yeah.
Nico Hulkenberg.
Yep. Come on, Jamie. Give us the hype.
I'm going to glaze like crazy. He has put in work in that Sauber. To be fair to Bortoleto, it is only 7.5 in qualifying to Hulkenberg.
I see, Bortoleto's had quite a few times where he has been quicker on a Saturday.
He has, and Hulk's ahead by a 10th on average in quali, so he's not been destroying Bortoleto that much in quali, but in the races, he absolutely has been. Obviously, the 7th in Melbourne was kind of down to luck, but was still quite funny, ahead of both Ferraris. The 5th in Spain, mental. What on earth happened there?
Everything fell right again. But,
it did, but he was on for 8th or 9th anyway, and then the late safety car did play into his hands. But him overtaking Hamilton on lap 65, incredible. I just think he's been... To say that we all predicted him basically stone dead last in that Sauber. Yes, the Sauber has got better since the upgrade in Spain. But I still struggle to believe it's anything higher than the 8th fastest car. And
it's always great with Hulkenberg as well, because, of course, he really has seen everything in Formula 1 pretty much, hasn't he?
Apart from a race-winning car.
But you do kind of get the sense still that he drives like every race could be his last.
What do you mean by that?
As in, he's always trying to get everything out of it, that he's still having to prove himself.
Well, yeah, that's a good delivering driver, isn't it?
Yeah. I'm not saying that as a bad thing with him. He's just like always. It feels like he's always racing for his career, because especially as he is now one of the oldest drivers on the grid.
Yeah, it wouldn't take a lot. It would take a few bad races for him to kind of not get a contract for next year, although he already has one. But you know what I mean?
He's already
like,
got one for next year, exactly.
He could easily
and
become a
he's
Bottas.
his last chance.
Yeah, and I think to say that after Australia, we both said that I don't think Sauber will score again.
No,
to be fair to Jonathan Wheatley, he's doing a bit of work as the team principal. But yeah, I could settle for B, but I'd rather him be an A.
I'm happy to put him bottom of A.
Okay, sweet.
I'll allow it this time. I'm being kind to you today. We've got a fair few more to rattle through, Jamie. We've got to get on with this.
Speed up
a little bit so far.
I know. Lance Stroll is a weird one because he is 12th in the championship. He's on 14 points. Almost all of them were scored in the first 2 races.
Yep, like he does every year.
He has been worse than Alonso. I don't care about the points.
Yep, I think
he has
all
been
agree.
worse than Alonso. He's 11-1 down in quali. He's 4/10 off Alonso on average. But on the races where loads of luck has played involved, he does turn up in the points.
Yeah, but that's the Lance Stroll way, isn't it?
That's
what he's done for like every Grand Prix ever.
I would go for the first C, but
I'm seeing no one here that he's had a better year than so far.
Yeah, because really he's stat padding with that 5th in the Miami Sprint and the 6th in Melbourne. So, yeah, let's go for C. Quick one. Carlos Sainz, worse than Albon.
Yep.
For sure. He's not been terrible. He's actually got quite a few points finishes. He's just been like 9th and 10th. So
he's just been the Williams number 2, hasn't he, basically?
He has, yeah. I think I'd go for a low B.
Are we putting him bottom of B lower than Ocon?
Yeah, Ocon's beaten his teammate. Sainz hasn't, even though Ocon's got a worse teammate. Gasly, again, he's scored 100% of Alpine's points. He's beaten both rookie teammates.
Wow.
But he's had a very inconsistent year. He's got 2 Grand Prix points finishes, 1 sprint finish, 11 points, 14th in the championship. Anything lower than B feels harsh.
We just don't know how good or bad this Alpine is, isn't it?
Exactly.
On any given weekend.
He's 9-3 up on his teammates collectively.
Which honestly actually isn't that great when both of them have had no experience, pretty much.
Yeah. Yeah, and he's not had the highs of anyone, apart from the Bahrain race. That was kind of it, and he did okay in Spain. But then a random disqualification, obviously, because why not? I could go B, but again, Gasly's been so under the radar, hard to read because Alpine is really weird. I think he's just trying to
get through this year, isn't it?
Exactly.
Hope for 2026 is going to be better at the moment. I mean, we're putting a lot of people in B. Would you say he's done better or worse than Sainz this year?
I'd say better.
I would actually argue, should we put Sainz at top of C?
Yeah, okay.
Put Sainz at top of C. Are we putting Gasly at bottom of B? Worse year so far than Ocon?
Yeah. Ocon's had higher highs.
You hate to admit it.
Which, yeah. Yuki Tsunoda is 15th in the championship with 10 points, 3 of which were scored at VCarb.
Yep. He has scored Red Bull's only points that aren't Max, though.
Well, all 7 of them?
Yep, exactly.
To Max's 155.
Yep.
He can't go higher than B. He's been done over. But no, C, sorry. I meant C.
Yeah.
Because Max Verstappen is obliterating him. And it's kind of sad to see, but he's 9-0 down in quali.
Yep.
7/10 on average. I know Verstappen is one of the greatest of all time.
Yep.
But he's still getting
in
absolutely
a car designed for him.
Yeah.
I think for Yuki, a bit basically anybody in the Red Bull whole system should be looking for a drive elsewhere. Could he still go to Aston Martin at some point down the line? Only time will tell. He did do well in the first couple of races in that V-Carb, like we said. But it's so difficult, isn't it? Because you're kind of going, that V-Carb is a decent package. And, of course, he's not going to drive it again.
Yeah.
But
well, he was 2-1 up.
What else can they do?
He was 2-1 up against Hadjar. He only got points in the China Sprint in the V-Carb. Yeah. I just think the Red Bull spell of his season has absolutely tanked it, to be honest.
Yeah, which is, it was always going to happen. Sadly.
Obviously, a lot of high profile. It basically feels like whatever Tsunoda does in quali, he always ends up on the back row. Regardless, he could get, he could qualify 11th, but then pick up a penalty. He could qualify 15th and break Parc Ferme and start from the pit lane. He could
feels like pretty much every weekend he's starting from the pit lane.
Yeah. Which is not great.
No. And
Next
it
up
just
is
obviously means in a difficult car, he can't move his way back through in the races.
exactly.
Where are we
Dirty,
putting
yeah.
him, sorry?
I think C.
Higher, lower than Stroll?
That's a hard
He hasn't
one.
even had the high Stroll's had, has he?
No, he
Which is
hasn't. I'd
painful
actually
to
go lower
say,
than Stroll.
which is
and
so alarming.
Tsunoda's definitely a better driver, but this season
Yeah.
Stroll has at least had a few more highs, and on the surface of it, Stroll's got more points in a worse car. So,
Yeah, exactly.
Fernando Alonso is next, and he has had horrendous luck all season.
Yep.
3 11th
Finally
places,
got a couple of points recently.
3 retirements, has got 8 points since Spain and Canada. He's been better than Stroll, hasn't he? But it's not been the Fernando Alonso of old.
No, a bit like Lewis, isn't it? You can tell these two.
They're just around.
Exactly.
He's 11-1 up on his
They're
teammate,
both
though.
just waiting for next year, otherwise they're gonna call it a career. Surely.
Exactly. But I still think, well, he's got to go ahead of Stroll. I think he's for the 5th in, was it Imola? He qualified 5th, and then Monaco he qualified 6th.
They were the only team to use the mediums though at Imola, which did massively help them. It turned
And
out.
screwed them over in the race, didn't it?
Exactly.
He is operating at a decent, like a good level, but he's not operating as 2010 Fernando Alonso anymore, is he?
He's also going up against Lance Stroll.
That is hard to read, yes.
Yeah.
I think a low B, if it's not too busy in there.
Better or worse than Gasly?
Better.
Better or worse than Ocon? He's had lower highs. And no, I suppose.
I think Alonso's done better than Ocon, personally.
Better or worse than Lewis?
Probably better, but marginally. They're basically having the same
Lewis
season.
and Kimi.
Yeah, okay. I'm happy with that.
I feel like I struggle with that one because Lewis is Alonso has been unlucky. I think they belong together here, don't they?
They
They've
do.
had similar seasons.
They're
just
best
in
of
different
friends.
Parts of the field. Yeah, they certainly are.
Ollie
5
Bearman.
more to go then, Jamie. Ollie Bearman up next.
He's had a weird rookie season. A few points finishes early on. He actually hasn't scored since Bahrain, which feels wrong.
Yep.
He's done alright. Like, quality especially has done alright against Ocon. He's obviously been the second best house driver, but it has been close, and I think he shouldn't go that far away from Ocon, but probably top C.
Better or worse than Sainz? Bearing in mind, as we said, we do give the rookies a little bit more
We
leeway,
do.
and we've
Maybe
only got rookies left.
Maybe better than Sainz.
Better than Sainz, so top of C for the
Top
moment.
C. Yeah, not too far from Ocon, is he? Liam Lawson, who I think I was gassing up into next week in pre-season.
Yes, you were.
He is not a particularly fantastic driver.
I feel like he's just.
I do like the guy.
Again,
I do
think
like
if you-
him.
You take him out of Red Bull. Honestly, you put him like in an Alpine or something like that. I think you would.
He'd be an
genuinely
okay
think he's got
midfielder.
the skills to have a decent Formula One career. You don't win in everything else you've ever touched without
Exactly.
being a decent wheelman.
Exactly.
It just hasn't worked for him, has it?
Well, those 2 Red Bull races at the start of the year absolutely destroyed his spirit.
Yeah.
And
then
career,
he's been
potentially.
done by Hadjar.
Exactly. It's 8-1 down to Hadjar in quali, and 2.5 tenths gap in Hadjar's favour. Got a points in Monaco, and that's it. 18th in the championship.
I would argue he's been the worst driver we talked about so far, which is a shame.
Probably, yeah. And he's had a lot of incidents. He's very, very aggressive.
Yeah.
But a lot of them...
We all know the song. We all know the song.
I'm not sure I do, but...
You know the Liam Lawson song, surely.
Actually, I'm not sure I do.
I won't repeat it on the airways,
I'll look it up afterwards.
but please do.
Next up is Gabi Bortoleto, who is yet to score points. He's
had this season we would expect from a Sauber car.
Yes. The only problem is his teammates doing a lot better, as we said.
Only in races.
Only in races, but then to be 20 points to 0 is not a great look. If Hulk was still on the 6 he got in Melbourne, you'd be like,
it'd be
okay, fine.
Yeah.
But Bortoleto, with the speed that Hulk is showing, it probably should have a points finish or 2 by now.
But it's only really been... There's been, 3 chances for them to score points so far?
Really
2,
because
really?
Melbourne was kind of lucky.
Yeah.
It's been a fine rookie season. It's just a shame for him that a lot of the rookies are doing better.
Well, 2 of them are, 3, I suppose.
I think Bearman Hadjar and Antonelli are all having better seasons than Bortoleto is.
Yeah. What I will say is I do really hope that he gets to keep that Audi seat for next year. I think he deserves to keep that seat.
He'll keep it for 26, I'm sure. I don't see the point of replacing him, really, because he's their own driver. They paid quite a lot of money to get him out of McLaren. Yeah.
Where are we going to put him? I think he's got to go C tier, hasn't he? I think
C,
lower than Bearman,
yeah.
like you said. I'm looking at it going between Sainz and Stroll.
Yeah.
Or would you... Is that
I'd agree
fair?
with that.
He hasn't scored.
Yeah, but Stroll is in his 50,000th season.
There is also that.
Colapinto is 20th.
Yep.
And
already had to do it on count back.
Canada has been the only good race for Colapinto. Before that, he was under pressure of losing his seat.
We were all talking about bidding him off already.
But Canada was green shoots of revival, to be fair to him. And yeah, he's not been great. But we've only got a 4-race sample size. And
yeah, ranking these last two is always a bit tricky, isn't it?
Yeah. I would go C for Colapinto.
Whereabouts in C? Lower than Stroll?
Probably lower than
And
Stroll.
the thing is with Colapinto, I think he can shoot up the order a bit if he gets a few good races.
Exactly.
But we we can't base it on ifs and buts.
4 races and 3 of them were pretty shocking. I would probably go the worst driver.
Lower than
Is
Lawson?
that harsh? Well, the thing is, the Colapinto had 1 decent race and it was still 13th place.
Yeah. Okay. We'll put him in C for now then. And last but not least, then Jack Doohan.
Which I think he was quite unlucky to lose a seat so early. But obviously that was the way that Alpine were always going.
Yeah.
Did
I qualify Pierre in Miami? But again, we
and then he got Lawson at turn 1.
He did get Lawson at turn 1. You kind of there going. It's very easy when someone in their last race does better than their teammate. Like people talk about Michael Andretti getting a podium at Monza. You kind of get going, oh, perhaps it could have been the start of something great, but there's no real guarantee. And based on everything else, it was not looking good. That high-profile crash at Suzuka, unfortunately for Doohan, it was always going to be difficult. Right from the get-go.
He didn't help himself, did he?
No. Better or worse than Colapinto, though?
That feels really difficult to judge. I feel like Flavio Briatore. I'm
going to say that we put Lawson, Colapinto, and Doohan in D tier.
I think that's probably fair. Lawson at the top, and then Colapinto, then Doohan, I would go.
Fair enough. There we go. We've got our list then, Jim. We've got our order.
Have.
Do you want me to read these back to you? So we tried to rank them in order, 1 through 20. So you've got Oscar Piastri, Max Verstappen, George Russell, Alex Albon, Charles Leclerc, Nico Hulkenberg, Lando Norris, Isack Hadjar, Andrea Kimi Antonelli, Fernando Alonso, Lewis Hamilton, Esteban Ocon, Pierre Gasly, Ollie Bearman, Carlos Sainz, Gabriel Bortoleto, Lance Stroll, Yuki Tsunoda, Liam Lawson, Franco Colapinto, Jack Doohan.
I'm actually quite happy with that.
I think we've done a pretty good job there. I'd say we've done all right.
I agree. I do agree. And that's the real power rankings, because the F1.com ones are horrendous every time.
Yeah, exactly.
There you go.
Are we done? Have we smashed it out without too much controversy?
I think we actually have. Did Max end up in S? He did, didn't he?
Yes. Yeah.
All right, I'm happy.
So Oscar
Job
and
done.
Max are in S. Yeah. We've got Russell, Albon, Leclerc, Hulkenberg in A. Norris, Hadjar, Antonelli, Alonso, Hamilton, Ocon, Gasly in B. Bearman, Sainz, Bortoleto, Stroll, Tsunoda in C, and then Lawson, Colapinto, Doohan in D.
Great. So Hulkenberg's 6th best driver on the grid. Love that.
As of right now. Yeah.
There we go. I'm happy with that. I need to be in work in 2 minutes, so probably don't have time for the quiz.
Fair enough.
Save it for the pre-show.
We will. Thank you all, as always, so much for listening. Let us know your tier list, what we got wrong. Yell at us down in the comments below that we're biased Hulkenberg fans here. Like we said in the intro, please do make sure you get yourself subscribed. And I guess Jamie and I will return then later on this week, we should say, for an Austrian Grand Prix preview.